Hey guys, this is a pick a card reading for 2026 prediction. As you see here, we got two piles. We're looking at the overall energy of the year, what's leaving your life, what's entering, and the message spirit wants you to know. So this is pile 1 and this is pile 2. Now, I want you all to take a moment to take a deep breath inside and exhale before we start this reading. And the reason for that is because before you start this video, you need to make sure that your energy is very grounded. So like I said, take a deep breath in. Exhale. And let's do that for 3 times before you get into this reading. Now, I want you guys to focus on both of these piles and really focus on which pile is calling towards you, either pile 1 or pile 2. Really feel and really put your intention and energy into what pile is calling you. And once you select the pile, we will begin the reading. Like I said, this is pile 1, pile 2. Really focus your energy. Which one are you drawn more to? If you chose pile 1, this is what 2026 is going to look like for you, the viewers who chose pile 1. So let's start to shuffle and pull. I would say, I feel like pulling 4 to 6 cards, okay? So what does 2026 look like for the viewer who chose pile 1? What does 2026 look like for the viewer who chose pile 1? What does 2026 look like for the viewer who chose pile 1? Let me move these up. If you chose pile 1, your 2026 carries a energy of pulling inward after a long period of noise and effort. There's a feeling here that you've been trying to speak or even prove or push something forward, for a while, and it seems like it hasn't been really landing the way you hoped. Now with the proclaimer reverse, there's a sense that in 2026 you stop forcing your voice to be heard, not because you don't matter, but because you realize that you don't need to explain yourself anymore. There's a quiet confidence replacing the need for validation. And then with the 4 of Cups and the 10 of Wands together, it feels like emotional and mental overload. It seems like by the time 2026 actually arrives, you're tired of carrying things you don't I got tongue-tied. It seems like you're tired of carrying things that don't emotionally, nourish you. Situations, it could be responsibilities. It can even be relationships that once felt important start to feel heavy or, unfulfilling. This year, seems like it marks a point where you finally acknowledge that exhaustion instead of ignoring it. Now, with the Keeper of Wands reverse, it shows burnout around, I would say, passion. Something you once felt excited about, whether that's a goal or a role or even a version of yourself. You know what I mean? It seems like it no longer lights you up the same way. And instead of pushing it through, it's like you used to, I would say, honestly, instead of pushing it through, it's like you used to, always pushing it through. But it seems like 2026 is asking you to pause and ask why. Now, hopefully that makes sense to you. Now, with the 5 of Wands reverse, it's a powerful one here. It seems like conflict fades, it seems like competition fades, you stop fighting battles that, never truly belong to you. There's less chaos around you in 2026, but only because you consciously step away from environments that I would say drain your energy. And then with the 4 of Swords, it brings the core message of the year. Rest is not optional anymore. It's necessary. 2026 is a recovery year for you. No stagnation, no failure, but recovery. You know what I mean? It seems like your nervous system finally gets a break. Your mind clears. You begin to heal from stress you didn't even realize were holding you down. So 2026 for pile 1 isn't about doing more. It's about doing less, but with intention. You reclaim your peace by choosing silence over explanation, rest over burnout, and calm over chaos. So your message that Spirit is trying to give you is You don't need to carry everything into, you know, the next chapter in 2026. So now we're going to sit here and ask, what are you leaving behind in 2025? So let's get the cards, okay? What is the viewers leaving behind in 2025? What is the viewers leaving behind in 2025? What is the viewers leaving behind in 2025? So as you can see here, we got the Justice card upright, we got the Six of Swords upright, and then we got the Star reverse. Now, when I look at what you're leaving behind, you know, 2025, there's a strong sense of closing a karmic chapter. With Justice upright, you know, it feels like truth finally comes to the surface. Something gets balanced, something gets named of, you know, what it really is. You know what I mean? It seems like you stop questioning whether you were right or wrong, whether you deserve what happened or whether things were unfair, you know? There's clarity here. Even if it wasn't comfortable, it was honest, you know? And then with the Six of Swords, it shows a conscious decision to move on. Now, this isn't running away. This is choosing peace. You mentally and emotionally distance yourself from something that, you know, honestly kept pulling you into confusion, you know, or emotional turbulence, you know. And it seems like you don't drag it into 2026 with you, which is a good thing, you know what I mean? Because who wants to do that? It's a new year. Leave behind the old and come in with the new, okay? And then with the Star reverse, you know, it suggests that in 2025, hope have been tested, you know. It seems like you may have poured your faith into something or someone that didn't heal the way you expected. And it seems like what you're leaving behind is waiting for something external to restore you. So how this honestly ties into 2026. So by the time, you know, 2026 begins, you're no longer chasing fairness, closure, or reassurance. You already made peace with truth. You know what I mean? It seems like you already walked away. And because of that, 2026 honestly becomes less about healing through others and more about healing within yourself. So this is what you have for pile, you know, 1. Now we're going to get into pile 2. Now, people who was pulled to pile 2, okay, we're gonna sit here and start your reading, okay? And if this message finds you, it was meant for you, honestly, okay? So we're gonna see what 2026 look like for you, okay? So what does 2026 look like for the viewers who chose pile 2? What does 2026 look like for the viewer who chose pile 2? What does 2026 look like for the viewer who chose pile 2? What does 2026 look like for the viewer who chose pile 2? Okay, let me start pulling. Oop. I pulled 2 cards. Oopsies. Let me move these up for you guys to see. So, if you chose pile 2, 2026 feels like a year of clarity after confusion and a shift in perspective. Now, there's a sense that what once felt endless or overwhelming, you know, finally begins to settle into focus. With the world reversed, it seems like the year opens with a reminder that completion isn't always linear, you know. It seems like something may feel unfinished at first, but that's not failure. It's a chance to, you know, redefine your path on your own terms. 2026 invites you to take control of what, you know, completion actually means to you. And then with the Seven of Cups reverse and the Four of Cups reverse together shows that illusion, distraction, and stagnation starts to literally clear, okay? Which is a good sign. It seems like you may have spent time wondering which path to take, you know, which opportunities to trust, or whether, you know, your desires were realistic. And now by 2026, I would say there's a natural focusing of your energy. You know what I mean? It seems like choices feel lighter because your heart and mind start to align. You know what I mean? It seems like emotional fog starts to lift. You know, opportunities you truly care about begin to stand out, you know? And then with the Page of Wands upright adds excitement. There's a spark of curiosity, you know, creativity, you know, or a new beginning, a personal project, I would say, or a skill, or even a new mindset that brings enthusiasm into the year, you know. This energy is youthful and, you know, exploratory, you know, encouraging you to step forward into, you know, something new without overthinking. And then with the Seven of Wands upright, this shows that some boundaries and challenges remain, you know, and that's not a bad thing. But they're now ones that you can face with confidence. You know what I mean? It seems like you have the strength to stand for yourself and protect your energy. And 2026, you know, it seems like it helps you, I would say, do that in a calm, intentional way. You know what I mean? It seems like you're less reactive and more strategic, okay? And then with the Hanged Man reverse, it signals movement after a period of pause or waiting, you know, where things may have felt on hold in the past, you know. 2026 encourage you to finally act decisively, you know, seeing your world from a fresh perspective, you know. It seems like you no longer need to wait for external validation or perfect timing, you know. Action and clarity is literally yours to claim, okay? So this year brings, I would say, emerging clarity, you know, focused energy and bold curiosity, you know. What once felt, you know, stagnant or confusing now becomes a platform for growth, okay? 2026 invites you to step forward with attention. Take your power and trust your perspective, okay? So stop over analyzing, you know, focus on what truly excites you and let clarity guide your steps, okay? Now we're going to sit here and get into what are you leaving behind in 2025? What is Pile 2 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 leaving behind in 2025? So as we have here, what you're leaving behind, I have the King of Cups reverse, Death reverse, and the Devil reverse, okay? So as 2025 closes, okay, people who chose Pile 2, it seems like you're shedding heavy emotional patterns and toxic attachments, which is so interesting, you know. The King of Cups reverse suggests that in the past, emotions have, you know, felt unstable either through your own self-doubt or from others projecting imbalance onto you. You may have carried emotional weight that's not yours to bear, you know, or felt manipulated or overly dependent, or, you know, overly dependent on external validation, you know. So by leaving this behind, 2026 opens a space for emotional maturity and healthy boundaries, okay? And then with the Death reverse, it shows that previously endings has been resisted, you know, things that you should have left, you have not, you know, put behind you. It seems like there could have been a fear of letting go of change, you know, or fully stepping into a new chapter. But as 2025 ends, that resistance is falling away. You get what I'm saying? It seems like you're finally allowing necessary transformation to take root, even if it feels gradual, you know. And then with the Devil reverse, it emphasizes that release from old attachments, you know, unhealthy cycles, or fears of I would say fears that honestly kept you stuck. You know what I mean? It seems like what you're leaving behind is limiting beliefs, toxic patterns, and situations that no longer serve you for your highest growth, okay? So how this ties, you know, into 2026 is that you're entering the year from, you know, fear of emotional chaos, you know, you have more clarity about who and what deserves your energy, you know. It seems like you're no longer being held back by fear or change, okay, or even toxic patterns, you know what I mean? So this makes the earlier 2026 reading, you know, clarity, focus, bold action, and following what excites you, you know, it makes even more sense, okay? The path is open now because the old burdens are finally gone. So this is what you're going to be leaving behind in 2026. So this wraps up, you know, the reading for you who viewed the video, which is my collective. This wraps up your 2026 pick a card reading. You know, whatever pile you chose, take what resonates and leave the rest, you know. Remember, these messages are here to guide you, not to find you, okay? So 2026 is a year of release, clarity, and intentional growth. You know, it's about stepping into your power, you know, trusting your path and giving yourself permission to rest, heal, and take bold steps forward, you know. Carry the guidance that spoke to you into your year, you get what I'm saying? And let it just help you move forward through 2026 with confidence and ease, you know. If this reading resonated, like the video, subscribe for more pick a card readings, and comment below which pile you chose. I'd love to hear what message, you know, found you. So I hope you guys, like I said, enjoyed this video. Bye for now. Peace out.